The only kind of area of concern for me there is the contract, because the way that they had written the contract initially was not like what you had recommended in the videos. And so I'm trying to communicate to him like how I basically need him to structure it in order for me to like sign the contract and send him money. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a helpful place to start, because the examples that I give in the course are primarily examples. They're not a rule of law that you have to use this way. What I'm trying to help protect from is you find some contractor that's a mom and pop contractor, and they normally just go on, a handshake, right? And that's not what you want to do. If someone's got a polished process where you're actually signing a contract with them, that's fine. You just want to make sure that it has the right terms in it, right? So one, you want to be aware of what you're liable for and make sure that it's reasonable, right? If one of their contractors steps through the roof, falls down and breaks both his legs, you shouldn't be responsible for that, because it's a full gut rehab that you're having them work on, right? They need to make sure that they've got insurance and that they're protected on that side. One of the other things is distributions. So distributions of money. And so, in fact, I'm talking with a contractor right now in Abilene who said, I need 50% up front, and it's on my my eightplex, and it's going to be $100,000 rehab. And I said, hey man, I'm just like, this is my first time using you. I'm not cutting you a check for 50 grand. That's just not going to happen. And so either we can negotiate down to 25%. I think that's reasonable. You're going to need a bunch of materials because it's a big job, but we haven't worked together. So there's just no way I'm giving you 50%. So we can either negotiate, or I can find another contractor. That's up to you, right? So we're working through that right now. But you do need to make sure that you're going through distributions. You're not paying everything up front in order to protect your money and provide some additional accountability on the contractor. Because if they don't have all the money, then they're going to keep moving. Once they've got all the money, a lot harder for to get them to do anything. So those are the main things. So does that help clear things up?
Yeah, that does. That, makes it pretty simple. I think that's what I didn't ask him about the insurance thing. I think maybe I did in our initial interview, but I want to clarify that. And then the distributions, I think is what we just talked about. I'm excited to work with them, and I think like for future projects, we may be able to knock it out quicker by doing a larger upfront payment. But I just kind of explained to him that
that's good. That's helpful, because once you're working with a contractor consistently and they got a great product and you're having a good experience, a 50% down payment is not a big deal. They just help you move faster. That's totally fine, because there's going to be some lag when he says, hey, I need the next payment, and you say, send me some documentation. And so the next day he sends you documentation. That's one day. The next day he sends you documentation, and you've got a life, right? You've got a W-2, maybe you've got date night with your spouse and you can't do it that night, right? So then it takes another day, and then you get back to him the next day, right? That's 3 days, right? So that's 3 days of work that could be, being completed, that's not being completed. And that's fine. That's not a big deal, but the faster you can move, the lower your holding costs are. You can get a tenant in there and start getting rent. So all that to say, if he's got a contract, it's okay, use it. You just need to review it and make sure it's not saying something unreasonable. If you're confused by the contract and you're saying, I don't know if I'm stepping into a bear trap, you're welcome to send it over to me, and or send it in the Slack and get a bunch of different people's eyes on it. I think, having the community help evaluate that and just get their eyes on a contract like that themselves, I think would be helpful. And then if there's any big questions, you can always consult an attorney. And attorneys for things like this, you buy an hour of their time, you pay them $75, $90, whatever, for a consultation. I've had attorneys charge me $50 for an hour, or $100 for an hour, or something like that, and just have them evaluate the legalese. That's totally reasonable too.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's basically nothing in the contract. It's like an Excel sheet. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's an Excel sheet. It says materials, and it has them all listed. It has like flooring, paint, drywall, light fixtures, but there's not a price next to anything. It just has like a long list of materials that they'll need. and then it has labor, and it has a long list of like labor items that they're going to do, like demo kitchen, demo bathroom, install tile, install sink, stuff like that. So there's not like there's nothing that says like, oh, the kitchen is going to be this much, and then and the roof is going to be this much. It's not like itemized like that. And then there's also not the payment schedule is not included in the contract. So those were the two things. Those were the two things that I wanted, I think. And so is that what I should be asking for?
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to include the price per item. Now that's helpful because you get a little bit of information on how much do things cost and what are materials costing right now, so that you can vet them versus your rehab quote and future materials expenses. That's really helpful. Another thing it helps you do is if you've got 25 line items, each at $1,000, and you realize I don't need 4 of these, you know exactly how much you're cutting out, right? If there's 15 line items that are little things like replacing outlets, and they're going to be $50 to $250 each, and then there's one that's $30,000. It's a little bit harder. It's a little bit more of a mystery to understand what you could cut out. So that's why I like having numbers in there, but you don't have to. What I do recommend you have in the contract is the payment schedule. So here's how much you get up front, and then after X, Y, and Z have been completed, you get the next payment. You send pictures over, you get the next payment. Then after A, B, C have been completed, you get the next payment. And then upon complete review and finish of the job, you get the last payment. That's, I think, important because one, it protects you legally, but I think more than that, because most of the time you're not going to get into legal in your worst case scenario, you get there, but most of the time you're not getting into a legal situation with them. So the best reason that I think you should do this is it helps communicate expectations so that you can say, hey, Mr. Contractor, I'm totally fine. I've got the liquidity. I'll send the money over to you. But what we said was I need bathroom 1, bathroom 2, and the master done before I do that. And so what I want to do is push real hard on getting those things done. Once they're done, I will send the money over to you ASAP. Right? He might say, well, I need more materials. I need more money for materials. And you say, well, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to figure out how to get those materials for the next one, because this is what we agreed to. Now, the one caveat to that is you want to evaluate someone's character and intention, which is kind of a mysterious thing as well. It takes some effort. But if they say, if the one thing you agreed to in the first distribution is the entire exterior is being painted, right? And for one solid week, you've had monsoon season and it's raining. Do you want them to paint the exterior of your house when it's raining? No, you don't, right? So they might go ahead and go, if your first step is paint the house and then do bathroom 1, 2, and the master for the second draw for materials, it would make sense. They say, hey, we had to skip that because we had a bunch of storms, we had a bunch of rain, so we went ahead and did this. That's a reasonable adjustment, right? But it puts you in the driver's seat instead of you being not having any protection there. So it communicates the expectations.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's already the situation we're dealing with. It's starting to be winter up in Indianapolis, and they're wanting to get the roof and the like exterior foundation work done because the concrete's gonna need to dry and whatnot. And then that's part of like what we're trying to figure out with the payment schedule. So I think like the first payment is pretty clear what the scope can be before the second payment is released, but after that it's I don't know. I think
you can even say that like, hey man, if we need to move some things around, that's fine. I just want a default to make sure that you and I are on the same page. And so if you go ahead and you do, if it's broken into A, B, C, and D distributions, and you do A, perfect, I'll give you another distribution. And then you do C because B just can't be done, or logistically, or maybe there's supply chain issues. There's a lot of craziness going on in the economy right now. It's super volatile. So supply chain issues, that would be reasonable, right? Paint is a big deal right now. I mean, there are some places that just don't have any paint. I'm talking to a painter. We're actually having our primary house painted, the entire exterior. And we talked to the painter a few months ago. He's like, I can't find the paint that I need to paint your house. And so, I'm first on the list with this painter right here, but supply chain issues are a thing, right? So if you need to move them around, that's fine. and communicate that to the contractor. Like, I've got some flexibility. I just want to make sure you and I are on the same page. That's my main goal here. Of course, I want to protect myself, right? Just because we've never worked together, but I expect you're a good guy, that you really want to keep working together with me, because I'm going to keep investing here. Like, it's a good situation for you,
Mhm.
but it's primarily, it's just for communication.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.